Sekaloth was pleased with the progress his forces had made. With the elimination of the Sylvan Elves' woods, he had destroyed any chance for the Elves of Port Kervion to lessen the pressure he placed upon them. Now was the time to strike. He commanded his troops to use the closest portal to the Elves' supply outposts and destroy those outposts at any cost. With their extra supplies destroyed, it would be easy for the forces of the Saurians to drive them out of their city. And then Tal Kriash would finally be his. Sekaloth closed his eyes and remembered the lay of the land ages ago, when his people ruled these lands. It would be so again. But this time it would be the hand of Sekaloth that would rule the empire. And he would grind down the other races, so that even their dreams of freedom would be turned to dust. Yes, the glory of the Saurians would return, and let the world tremble at its coming. All right, so we have the Saurian Ancients versus the Highborn Elves, me versus Michael in a 4,000 point narrative battle. We are doing the hold the ground objective. Basically we got to get to the center of the board with scoring units and lay claim to it. As you can see, the layout for my deployment is a little weird, so we'll get talking about it. But I was not expecting what he decided to bring, and so I'm very afraid of it. So let's go ahead and get into deployment. So here is the setup. He has a unit of the Sea Guard there, 10. Next to that is the repeater crossbow, the bolt thrower that the High Elves get. Next to that is a unit of 20 Lions Guard with his BSB who's kitted out, and I don't have his list handy. I can't find it. But he's pretty killy too. Next to that is a unit of 20 Swordmasters, just to increase the killing. Behind that is a unit of 20 Sea Guard, and in that is his Spellcaster, who is a Master Wizard level 4 to Cosmology. Then there is another Bolt Thrower on the other side of the Swordmasters. Another unit of 10-man Sea Guard. Behind that is his Sky Sloop with the Shooter. And then 2 Lion Chariots on the far side. So here is my deployment, and he had a lot of stuff, and I did not bring nearly enough units. I'm trying out some new things, some new stuff I just got painted, and some new ideas I've had. So it makes it a very small army. So I tried to be as denied flank as I possibly could, and tried to keep away from those damn chariots, because I'm really worried about that. The downside is I don't really have an answer to his big blocks of elite troops either, I don't think. So I guess we'll just try and survive on pure bodies in my big unit. But here's my layout. Starting in the left of the screen, I have a unit of 15 Skink Braves with a Banner of Discipline, and they have a Musician and a Standard Bearer. They're basically just a bunker for my Skink Priest, who is a Wizard Apprentice, level 3 spells, 3 spells to Druidism. He also has the Jade Staff, so he automatically gets Healing Waters as a bound spell. So I'm hoping a lot of regeneration. If I can get the normal spell too, that'll be great. In that unit as well is my Skink Captain, who is serving as my Battle Standard Bearer. He is pretty much naked except for a lucky shield on him, just because I had some extra points. Next to that is my giant 32-man brick of the Saurus Warriors with full command and spears, shields, and the Serpent Warrior upgrades, so they get an additional instance of fight and extra rank. In with them is my Firstborn there on the right corner of the unit. He is my general. He has the Sword of Strength and a hardened shield and the Obsidian Nullstone. So that unit is big and has MR3. Next to that is a unit of 5 Caimans that I just got painted up. And the unit with the orange, or the figure with the orange stripe down his back is my Cayman Ancient for the first time I've decided to play him. He's got a great weapon and the Armor of Fortune and the Obsidian Rock, so that unit has a 5-up against magic. Hiding behind them are 2 Salamanders. They're 2 different units of Salamanders, not one unit of 2. Then my monsters in the back row, I have a Tyroscutus, a Taurosaur with the giant bow on it, and a Stygiosaur. Great monsters, just hoping that they'll survive all this shooting to get into something. And because my opponent decided to go ahead and drop first, he gets first turn. So obviously all of his stuff that moves needs to get over the side, so that's pretty much what he's doing up here. And everything else is slowly starting to turn and come towards me. He's playing it conservative because he knows he's got me outranged and doesn't need to move all that quickly, other than the stuff that's way far away. They need to get over here pretty fast. He ends up, maybe this is magic. I think he got the +1 ballistic skill off on the big unit of Seaguard. And shooting starts, and he ends up taking off one of the Caymans off the Cayman unit. He only takes it looks like 1 or 2 of the skinks out of the skink unit. And then it's my turn. I decide I've got to push up hard, so everything comes forward. I'm hoping I didn't march with the Steg, because I want to try and shoot at his bolt thrower with the giant bow on that. Everything else is going good. I know I don't have really much of a prayer of killing the Lion's Guard by shooting them, so I'm sending the 2 Salamanders to go deal with the Swordmasters, because a couple of shots from them, I should be able to do bad things to those Swordmasters. And then magic happens. I'm killing magic this turn. I get Oaken thrown up. I get Summer Growth on the Caymans to bring the one Cayman back. And then I did have Healing Waters as the spell. So I get Healing Waters on the big Saurus unit. And then I've got 1 dice left. And I throw the Bound Healing Waters and get it on the Steg. So, or the Taurosaur, sorry. So I'm pretty magicked up here. And that makes me very, very happy. I also have to say this is probably the best magic turn I've ever had, and I didn't bring a Salon. So I kind of like the idea of the Skink Priests bringing a lot more magic than the freaking Quaddalord. Then I do some shooting and actually get 2 wounds off on his Bolt Thrower. And then it's Highborn Elves' turn 2, and these guys are still trying to move their way here, which makes me happy because the longer they stay out of combat, the better off I am. And over here, he's pushing up. He's not wanting to throw the charges on me quite yet. He's just wanting to get his ducks in a row and get some more shooting on me. This turn, he did also get the Altered Sight on the big brick there. I know that for certain. And then he starts shooting, kills a couple more of the skinks off. Those skinks are being remarkably well defended with their 5-up armor save. Then he realizes where I'm sending those Salamanders and starts shooting. 1 wound on Salamander 1. The bolt thrower on the sloop does 1 wound on Salamander 2. Some more. I think the bolt thrower on this side kills that Cayman who just came back. Then the archers start firing. Salamander 1 dies. And then it's my turn. I decide that my stuff is safer in combat than out of it, so I go ahead and charge my big blue wave of Saurus at that tiny little group of archers. They're going to die. And then I charge the Caymans at the Lion's Guard. I was actually thinking this is not a terrible matchup until I remembered or was made aware of by my opponent the fact that the Lion's Guard become stubborn against anything that has fear. So this was a miscalculation, to say the least. Everything else I move up just to support and see what I can get my hands on. And the Tyroscutus I move up so that he can give his bonus to weapon skill to both of my combat bricks there. And then Salamander 2 goes off and looks like he just about cuts the Swordmaster unit in half. I can deal with that. The Saurus obviously kill a bunch of these, basically kill all of the Sea Guard. They do take a couple of wounds in return, though, so they're not all whole. But I turn to reform as such. And again, sorry for the blurry picture. Combat goes on, and I do very well here. I killed 9 of the Lion's Guard. I do lose 2 more of the Caimans and a wound on a third one. I win this by 1 or 2. I didn't win it by much, but he's stubborn and doesn't go anywhere. And then the Highborn Elves turn 3 goes on, and things go bad. He launches into my side with the Swordmasters. He ends up getting a frontal charge against the Salamander with one of his Lion Chariots, although he does take a wound for his trouble from dangerous terrain. You can see he's turned his other units to face me and popped his wizard out of the archer bunker, and it just kind of has him hanging out here in the middle of nowhere, with the thought that I'm going to charge the bolt thrower and then overrun into him, so he doesn't want to be there when I arrive. And then over on here, he's just moving his stuff around the flanks to get better shots. And I don't know why I took a picture of this again. I guess it's just I'm showing the movement again. Over here, he does some shooting, kills one Saurus, then more shooting kills another Saurus. It's just hard for this ballistic strength 3 shooting to do anything to those guys. And that's really kind of the point of me having such a big brick, is it's going to take a lot of concentrated high strength fire to get them away from being combat effective. So we go into combat. He ends up killing the Salamander and overruns into the Stygiosaur and takes 2 more wounds from dangerous terrain for his trouble. And then these combined units absolutely slaughter the Caimans. They're dead before they get to swing. I think the only reason that there was a pursuit here instead of just a murder was that I challenged with my Caiman Ancient, and so I managed to splatter his champion from one of the units. It probably was the Swordmasters, but I couldn't deal with all that combat res, and I got run down. And this is pretty much where everything is sitting after that rundown. So we go to Saurian Ancients turn 3. Big things here. I decided to charge the flank of the Lion Chariot in the hopes that the impact hits would do the last wounds needed and maybe save the Stygiosaur's life. I charge the Saurus into the bolt thrower with the understanding that I'm going to kill that and overrun into the... Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. I charged the Saurus at his wizard first, and his wizard ran like a coward and ended up on the right side of the screen here. Understandably so. I would run away from that many lizard men, too. But then I redirected and slammed into the bolt thrower with the understanding that I'm going to overrun into the Sea Guard there. And then everything else I just moved up to support. As you can see, I'm over here, and magic goes very, very well for me again. A Summer Growth is going to completely restore my Saurus before they have to get into a fight, which is awesome. And then I do some shooting from the back of the Tyroscutus with javelins and actually end up killing 2 of the Sea Guard, which is pretty awesome, just for kicks. So we go into combat. Obviously, that bolt thrower is not going to stand against the Blue Tide, and I overrun straight into his face. And over here, I do actually succeed in killing the Lion Chariot. It only does 2 impact wounds to the Stygiosaur, but my overrun leaves a few things to be desired because now everything can go into the flank of the Taurosaur and bad things are probably going to happen to it. And that is the way things are. He charges both his other Lion Chariot and the Swordmasters into the flank of the Stygiosaur, or the Taurosaur. He tries to charge the Lion's Guard into the Stygiosaur. I decide I'm not having any of that. And no, actually, he must have charged the Swordmasters first. Yeah, I think that's what happened. He charged the Swordmasters, which is why I fled in that direction. I fled. He redirected into the Taurosaur, and then he tried to bring the Lion's Guard into the back of the Taurosaur and messed it up. So that's where he's standing. Magic is nothing. We go into combat, and these guys kill the Taurosaur before it gets to swing. I kill the archers here, overrun again, and end up clipping the unit of this other 10-man of the Sea Guard, and so when I complete the charge correctly, I end up like this, and they're going to die too. I did lose, I think, 4 or 5 Saurus to it, but unless it's against his, like, a couple of blocks of his elite troops, like, this ever-replenishing blue tide here is really hard to deal with for his normal stuff. So my turn 4, I do not rally with the Stygiosaur, and he runs to the very edge of the board. And I bring my support behind the Saurus block, mainly to just keep them out of charges from anything. And I get Summer Growth back, which gives me all of my Saurus back, but it is a miscast and costs me 3 skinks. Completely worth it. In combat, I kill the unit of Elves. I do lose 2 more Saurus for my troubles, but at this point, I'm okay with that. I'm managing to outmagic my opponent pretty regularly, so I don't really need to do much other than just keep bringing them back. I kind of strangely feel like an undead player for the moment, but it's working for me. Highborn Elves turn 5. He doesn't have any charges, but he is bringing the full force of his army to bear on me, and essentially using his sloop as a redirector. I certainly don't want to take those elves in the flank, but I don't really know that I have any other options, so I'm kind of confused at this point. So he does some shooting, peels off 3 more Saurus. I think he does some more shooting, might peel off some more Saurus. It looks like there's more missing. And then we go to my turn 5, and I decide I'm going to try something tricky and not go into this obvious trap he set. So I charge my general out of that unit into the bolt thrower, figuring I need to pick up some points. And then I managed to rally the Stygiosaur, so he's pretty awesome, particularly because he hasn't used his breath weapon yet. So if I can get near one of these other units and take him out, I could be in good shape. And then over here, I move everything to block up again. And this is, frankly, one of my big mistakes I make. I'm not, because my army is so far away from me, I'm not really looking very closely. And I basically just am telling my opponent where to move my stuff. And I was sloppy, and it'll show up in a minute as to what happened. On the plus side, though, I get 1 more Summer Growth off, bringing my Saurus unit back to full strength -1. So I've got like 31 dudes there now. And then obviously in combat, my tooled up general is going to slaughter the hell out of the Elven War Machine. Then we go into Highborn Elves turn 2. And you may be wondering, where the hell is the Tyroscutus? This is where I fucked up. He charges them with the Lion's Guard, and I choose to flee. Unfortunately, I wasn't paying attention to the fact that the skinks were essentially right in line with where he would be fleeing to. So he fled, hit them, and bounced off the board, and that was that. And then to make matters worse, that opened up the flank of my skink unit with my bunker and with my BSB, and the sky sloop decides that's a perfect target and goes straight for it. And oh my god, am I kicking myself at this point? So obviously he ate that. So we go to turn 6. For me, I go ahead and charge into the Lion's Guard, figuring this is the last chance for points. He's leaving his swordsman back a little bit so that he's just at the range where he's going to claim the scenario if I don't destroy this Lion's Guard unit to a man. If I destroy it to a man, then we're contesting it, and nobody gets it, but if they're still there, then it's his 2 units to my 1, and he gets it. So this is kind of my last-ditch effort to do that. I'm really kind of wishing at this point that my general was with the unit, because I could use the extra attacks, and it really just wasn't worth the points to have him run out there. So a lot of late-game mistakes from me here. Then the Stygiasaur runs up, and kind of my last hope at this point, if that combat doesn't work, is to breathe enough poison on these guys to break them, or to panic them and make them run away so they can't be claiming it, but we'll see how that works. And I do good! I do 5 wounds, which is 1 less than I needed to get any points from this unit. So they obviously don't break or don't panic, and yeah, I'm getting nothing out of these guys. Then we go into combat, and it is a bloodbath. This is probably the worst beating the Saurus took all game, and that's not to say that they did not give it back pretty well. I killed all but 4 of the Lion's Guard. I can't touch his BSB. They're not stubborn. They are down by 3, 7. So they're down by 3, 4, 5. And so they're down by 4, and he ends up sticking. So I get some points for him, but other than that, it was a pretty epic fail there, going into that final combat. And I feel like if I had my general, I could have tipped the tide, but it was some bad mistakes all around. The great hall of the Elven city port was abound with activity, and this was all thanks to the timely arrival of Prince Thal's 2 closest allies. One, a human, who had arrived and already left to help defend, and the other, a dwarf that had just arrived. Prince Victus celebrated the arrival of this long-needed help. For too long had his people been fighting a slowly losing war. They had won many of their battles, but they lacked the numbers that their many adversaries were made of, and he was fighting on multiple fronts. But no more. The great hall erupted into a frenzy as the doors swung wide, and in through it marched King Thoric Grudgehammer and his heavily plated army, a sight for sore eyes to be cheered. "Aye, Prince! You flighty bastard! How you been?" the Dwarven King exclaimed, marching towards Thal. This march was met by the Prince punching the King, who in turn simply smiled and said, "You still punch like your wife!" "You would know, Thoric," Alora responded from a corner. "How did your travels go? Do you need rest and—" "Bah, Alora! You know I'm not one for sitting and growing old. Just point me at an enemy already and let me go to work. I assume Alexander made better time than I." Thal nodded. "Then who is threatening your lands so badly that you felt the need to summon all of us?" Thal scowled slightly at the thought, then spoke. "The slavers are back." The Dwarf King's eyes widened before, and an angry furrow appeared on his brow. The two traded uneasy looks before Thoric spoke. I won't be put in chains like me ancestors. Point me at 'em, and let us settle some grudges. I don't know where they reside, but I do have reports that they struck one of my outposts. If you can track them from there, you can exact whatever vengeance you see fit. Thoric thought on it for a moment, then agreed, his large frame exiting the hall surrounded by his own sea of steel. Thal was overjoyed at his two allies, even if he wouldn't show it. And he would never truly admit to needing them, even though he did, desperately. And so, after we did the math, this between the just the killing and the fact that the Highborn Elves took the scenario objective, turned into a Highborn Elves victory, 15-5. Certainly at this point one of the worst beatings that my Saurians have taken. A lot of it, I feel, is because I made some stupid ass moves in turns 4 and 5. Yeah. I lost a lot of points in that last turn from letting my bunker get taken, letting the dinosaur run off the board, and essentially taking my general out of the fight just to go get a next to nothing point bolt thrower. All completely failures in my opinion. But it was a solid game. I like the list. I certainly like the Druidism priest with the extra staff. It gave me a lot of spells that my opponent needed to stop. And being able to just keep summer growthing up that unit of Saurus was nothing short of amazing. It really... I even think I probably could have handled... I could have sent the Saurus maybe into one of his 2 elite blocks and just relied on the bodies to keep them alive. And it probably would have been good. I made some bad choices in fleas in a couple of different instances. And in general, just I played a little sloppy, and my opponent was able to completely take advantage of it. And I think, too, I played sloppy because I'm so afraid of the Highborn Elves, which is weird. And I think it stems from the fact that we take this so seriously. We were talking the other day about how it's weird how we went to the tournament and we're able to have fun just getting the shit kicked out of us, but when we're playing in these narrative games, because we put so much more of a focus on that, the level of emotional intensity goes up, and it can lead to me being very afraid of stuff like the Lion's Guard and making stupid decisions because of that. So I've really got to figure out a way to kind of purge that from my mind and deal with them in a more calculating way, and understanding what strengths I have compared to what they're bringing. Maybe it would help. All in all, though, it was a good game. I like the list. I like the Caimans for the first time that I played them. My downside was forgetting that they would essentially give stubbornness to the Lion's Guard, and that ultimately got them killed, because they did a lot of hurt that first run. So I'm pretty happy with those, and I'll have to play them some more to get an idea of it. This list is actually kind of a small version of something I'm considering taking to Southern Assault, which is the tournament at the end of July. So I may kind of see if I can grow it and do something a little different, but I certainly like this build, and I'm going to experiment with it more in the future. As far as my opponent's list, he played solid. It was a good list. He had a lot of solid stuff in it. Good shooting, and enough scary bricks and damage output that I really didn't know where to go. And that's just simply the truth of it. But I think I was giving it as good as I got it up till about turn 5. And then I started making dumb mistakes, and it ended up costing me. I probably should have stuck against, I don't know. I don't know if I had a good option. I think once I had put my bunker in line with the dinosaurs overrun. Like, they were going to die anyway, whether I stayed or fled with the dinosaur. I just, bad mistakes leading to a bad result. But it was a good game. It was definitely something I can take some learning from and try and get better. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you did. I want to take a quick moment too to thank my those who support me on Patreon. At this point, it is Petter Voss and Sylvanus Ironwood. You guys are awesome. Anybody else who would like to support the channel, if you like what I do and would like to help me go to tournaments and do other fun things, you can find my Patreon link in the comment or in the write-up section below. Please check it out. It's just my channel name on the Patreon site if you don't want to just copy and paste. But thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you on the next one. Thanks a lot.